Welcome to episode 42 of KinFit. I'm Michael.
I'm Tiffany, and today it is a cloudy and slightly rainy day here in Montreal. We are filming at Place des Arts, one of the venues for the Just for Laughs festival.
I just realized it's always a cloudy and rainy day at KinFit.
I know, that's the kind of summer we're having.
It's not really summer, it's more like fall.
I know. Don't depress me more.
We might as well actually do fit news now before it actually rains for real.
So what's going on in Fit News this week?
Well, the first thing I want to talk about is another Wii fitness-oriented game. Interesting to see how there's this trend where there's more fitness games coming out recently. I don't know if this is necessarily a good thing because they might tell people to stop doing real exercise and start doing more exercises at home, whereas really meant to be more of a replacement when, let's say, the weather is bad outside and you don't want to go for a run, you can do something indoors. But that's just another topic entirely and we won't talk about it today. But the game that I did want to talk about is called NewU Fitness First Personal Trainer. Now, what's so interesting about this game is that not only is it fitness orientated, but it also adds a nutrition element to it where it offers nutrition advice.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a website, it's called NewU.me. The game itself is actually published by Black Bean Games and developed by Lightning Fish in cooperation with Fitness First, which is one of the world's largest fitness chains, and a TV show called You Are What You Eat, which is about people's eating habits. Now, from the look of the game, it actually looks similar to EA Active, only it has more of a professional look. It looks a little bit more realistic, less cartoony. It does use the Wii balance board as noticed in their trailer. But other than that, not much is known about the game so far, other than it's supposed to be out this fall. But it's just interesting how they're adding a nutrition component with a fitness game to kind of give you a more a
little bit well-rounded.
Well-rounded, like exactly. It gives you more advice where it's not just exercise, but it's also an eating component as well.
Well, we'll see how that turns out because I'm not sure how that would work. But it sounds interesting though.
Yeah. Interesting, so definitely something to check out, and we'll give you more info as it comes out. Yeah, and another game that I want to talk about is actually more geared at nutrition and less on actual fitness tips. It's called Nutrition Matters, which is also for the Wii and for the DS. Not much is really known about this game either. They don't even have a website yet, not to my knowledge. But from the information that we did get is that it does use the Wii balance board as well. It uses to measure your weight and calorie count. Not too sure how that works, but hopefully we'll find out soon. But other features allows players to analyze their eating habits. It also builds a history and projection of what a person or family is eating. An interesting feature though is it also has a menu feature which allows dinner parties to be planned.
Okay.
So it gives you nutrition info and the type and amount of foods to be used.
Interesting.
Yeah, and both these games are all goals orientated as well. So you would set your goals, but another interesting software to check out.
All right, so we'll definitely wait for that to come out to give you more information.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be important for people to understand that the nutritional advice that they may give is not, I think, specific for everybody. And in fact, if you do have a more specific health problem, you may need more advice from an actual dietitian just in case. Don't
forget, a game does not replace a real person.
That's right.
All right.
So on my end, a recent study just came out and it was conducted by the World Action on Salt and Health. And what it did is they actually analyzed the salt content of foods in Canada versus the US and also in the UK. And something very interesting came up. Turns out that the salt content in certain Canadian cereals are much higher than the salt content found in the exact same counterparts but in the US and the UK. Now, I think this includes one of the more supposedly healthier cereals, such as All Bran. And the difference between the Canadian version and the American and the UK version is a huge difference. And no real reason was given except for geographical differences and personal preferences. So that's not really, I think, a proper answer for me.
No, well, it's kind of interesting to see this kind of discrepancy. I mean, like, recipes are supposed to be the same regardless of where you live. But the fact that there's more salt in Canada than, let's say, in the US or in parts of Europe, it's kind of odd where, especially now, we know that salt is one of the leading factors for high blood pressure and heart disease. It's like, why is that we have more salt, but they don't have more salt? So it's kind of interesting to see what companies are actually going to do about this.
Yeah, and I think they also analyzed the fast food as well. So the same thing goes for, I think, the Kentucky, Burger King, and McDonald's. The salt content found in the foods in Canada is also higher. But at the same time, if you're going to be eating fast foods or foods that are commercially prepared, they will contain more salt than if you prepare the foods at home. So that's a general rule.
Yeah.
But in any case, maybe after this study, they'll actually follow up on it and we can get you more information about that afterwards.
Yeah. And the last little bit of news, well, not really news, but I wanted everybody to check out is a video that I found about ABC News documenting how a Florida hospital is using WeFit to help gain more mobility in their patients that have a specific disability in their lower upper body. The video is really pretty interesting because it actually shows a woman actually doing the WeFit exercises to gain more mobility in her legs. And they interviewed her and she said that when she was first admitted, she had no mobility at all, and now you can see her walking a little bit after doing several weeks of WeFit.
All right, so that's kind of nice. So definitely check out the video.
Yeah.
All right, that'll be it for this week's Fit News.
On this week's Fit Tip, I decided to talk about sit-ups. Why is that? It's because most often or not, I see people doing sit-ups improperly, or they're actually doing a crunch thinking they're doing a sit-up. Now, the difference between a sit-up and a crunch is that a crunch is with your legs elevated, whereas a sit-up is with your feet planted on the ground and your knees bent 90 degrees. Now, one common error that I noticed when you do sit-ups is that the person is either coming up too high or they're not going up high enough. Now, when you do a sit-up, a good indicator is by placing your hands on your thighs. Now, how it looks is like this. So your knees bent 90 degrees, feet are planted. Now, you want to start with your hands on your thighs. So when you do come up, you want to push your chest and your chin towards the sky or the ceiling by keeping and you also want to keep your spine straight in line with the rest of your body. So when you come up, it should look something like this. Now, once your hands pass your knees, this is a good indicator that this is the right height, and then you can come back down. Usually, for a lot of beginners, it might be too difficult for your hands to pass your knees. So what I would recommend is if you can just let your hands slide and reach your knees, that should be good enough. And as you get stronger, you should be able to complete a full sit-up like so. Now, you have to make sure that when you do come up, okay, you always come up at the same height. If you start to notice that your hands are not reaching the same height as your first repetition, it probably means that your abs are getting a little bit too tired and you're no longer doing a proper sit-up. So you might want to stop, take a rest, and then try another set. Usually for beginners, I would recommend try 1 to 2 sets, as many reps as you can. After a while, you start to notice that you can do a lot of reps. So I usually recommend if you're able to do 25 reps non-stop with proper movement, then you might want to try a more advanced exercise after that. Now, hopefully these little tips and guidelines will help you out in doing proper sit-ups. And if you are trying out that 200 sit-ups in 6-week program, I hope you attain your goal. And hopefully these little tips will help you with that. And that wraps up this week's Fit Tip, and we will see you next time.
So on today's InFOOmation, I want to talk a little bit more about salt. I know we touched on it during Fit News, but I want to give you a bit more detail. Now, I don't want to give the impression that salt is a very bad thing and it should be completely eliminated from your diet. In fact, it is very important to human function and you should have some, but within the recommended intakes. It's very important for electrolyte balance, for pH balance, and for osmotic pressure in the human body. And especially if you are active during the summer months and you're outside, you're walking, you're sweating, you're losing all the sodium, then you definitely need to take it back in. So that's why I want to say you should have some, but not too much, because some people are salt sensitive, and this contributes to high blood pressure if you're more prone to that, and then thus escalating into different types of cardiovascular disease. All right, so I also want to talk about a little bit about salt history. In fact, it was very, very valuable back in the old days. In fact, it used to be traded ounce for ounce with gold, and Roman soldiers used to be paid partly in salt, hence the words salarium and salary nowadays. So you can just have an idea of how valuable it used to be. Now, the 5 types of salt that I want to talk about, the most commonly used in the kitchen, I want to give you an idea of what each one is like and why they're different. The first one, the most common, is table salt, which is basically sodium chloride. This is salt that's mined from salt mines, and it is refined. So it's very small granules, and most of the other minerals are removed except for sodium and chloride. Now, in the past, I think, couple of decades, they've actually added iodine to it to counteract iodine deficiency that was happening years and years ago. However, if your diet is balanced, you don't have to worry about that. Now, for the next one I want to talk about is kosher salt. Kosher salt is a coarse grain salt and the grains have been compressed into flatter flake, and that sticks better to food and actually dissolves more easily. Now, it's not called kosher in the sense that it conforms to Jewish dietary laws, because as a salt, it's not meat nor dairy, so it's actually a neutral food. But it used to be, well, it's probably still used to kosher meat, which is how it got its name. Now, this kind of salt actually contains no iodine in it. It's a little bit saltier than table salt and less pungent. Now, for the next one I want to talk about is something called fleur de sel, which basically means flour of the salt. This is more of a specialty salt, and artisans actually rake it by hand off shallow pools off the coast of France. So the water actually has to be very calm and during a warm temperature for it to be taken, or else you'll probably lose it and you can't find it anymore. Now, it's a very delicate flavored salt, and cooks normally use it during cooking or as a finishing salt. Now, the next one I want to talk about is sea salt. This is minimally refined salt. So when it's taken from the ocean, the sea, or a bay, none of the trace minerals found in it are removed. So it can contain iron, magnesium, calcium, zinc, and iodine, and potassium. So this is, it's got a little bit more trace minerals than the table salt. The next one is also commonly used as coarse salt, and this is a larger grain sea salt, and it's less moisture sensitive, so it's easier to store and it doesn't cake up so much. Now, chefs prefer to use this because it's easier to be measured by their fingers. So I hope that clears up a little bit about the different types. There are a lot more, but I'll give you a little bit more information, and you can find about that later on. So that'll be it for this week's InFOOmation.
So this wraps up this week's episode of KinFit.
Please check back our show notes for all the pieces of information we want you to find out about.
And if you have any ideas, suggestions, or questions you want to send us, you can email them to us at info@kinfit.tv.
Big thank you goes out to Vincent for helping us with the camera, and also our little green friend here, and also for the fact that it didn't actually rain.
Nope, we're hanging out with the Just for Laugh haha devil.
That's right.
So remember, don't quit.
Stay fit. Completely take out of your diet altogether. Okay, that was bad. I didn't like it. Osmotic pressure and balance as well. Ugh, forget it. Why am I saying these? Blah, blah.